Hey everyone, it's Ryder from Skip. Thanks for tuning in early to our webinar today. I'm really excited to have this webinar. We are going to talk about one grant program in particular, and we will also so the Women of Color grant program will be the main one we focus on, but we're also going to talk about other grant programs as well. So we'll dive right in. I'm going to wait a few minutes for others to join, but I appreciate you joining early. We're going to be also doing Q&A today. So we've made it so only subscribers can leave comments, because the last one we did, we had too many comments. So hit subscribe now. We're going to go through how to apply for the Women of Color grant program. It's due next Wednesday. Some exciting news too, I'm going to mention again, but because you joined early, I'll tell you, we're going to have the director of this grant program join us next Tuesday. So the deadline is on Wednesday. So any last minute questions you have that we don't answer today, hopefully she'll be able to answer next Tuesday. So a few items to get started. First of all, if you want an invite to that Tuesday webinar with the director of this grant program, I'll tell you how to do that in a minute. But let me first talk about the grants program here, and we'll bring in the team here in a second. But the Women of Color grants program, 150 deserving small businesses will get between $10,000 and $20,000. It's probably the biggest grant program we've seen this year. There's the EIDL grants, which millions of you hopefully received. I think many of you may still be trying to get those $10,000 targeted EIDL grants. And there's a lot of other private organizations that do grants. We do our own $1,000 grants. I think many of you watching have applied. We pick winners every single month. But this one by the Tory Burch Foundation, put on by the Fearless Fund and the Crew, is one of the biggest ones. Of course, there's select eligibility. So I'm first going to talk about eligibility, and then we'll loop in the team and talk through how to apply, because there are questions on this form that we want to help you apply with. We've gotten some tips from the folks putting on this program on what they're looking for. So hopefully this helps. Again, subscribe so you can leave comments, because we're going to be answering specific questions in a few minutes. And thanks again. Would also love to see where you're watching from. As always, we love knowing where you're watching from. So thanks for tuning in. Let me bring in the team here, and you may have recognized some of the team from our past webinars. Chrissy used to work at the SBA, so she's helped a ton of people get through the SBA process and loopholes. David, big welcome to David and Kayla, who've also helped thousands of folks get funding, mainly EIDL funding, but also other grant programs as well. And as always, everything I talk about today, if you want personalized help, just use the link above. That's the helloskip.com/join link, or in the description. So let me talk about eligibility first. And hey, everyone. Hey, from New York, Kansas City, Chesterfield, Indiana. Great to see it. Great to see you all. So many familiar faces as well. So the Women of Color program was announced a couple weeks ago. Not a lot of people know about this yet, so you're ahead of the game if you're watching. Here's the basics. 10 to 20K. You need to participate in monthly meetings with a curated crew of fellow grant recipients between April of this year and April of next year. So keep that in mind. This is not just cash. It's about mentorship as well. I'm going to talk about eligibility, and then I will loop in Chrissy to say more about that. You need to be revenue generating, identify as a woman of color owner, 1 to 5 years in business is preferred, formed under U.S. law and operating in the U.S., and be a for-profit business. So those are the basics. We're going to share tips in a second. And Chrissy, do you want to expand a little bit on, on that and the eligibility there?
Yes, as far as being a woman of color and applying for these grants, it's very important that um, women of color do are able to be a part of, getting capital, getting funding. So it's not just about women of color; it's about women in general, because every woman is to help can help another pull up another woman, business person of color or not. But we just right now we're just focusing on this women of color. Um, so, yeah, glad to have you here.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many great programs like this. We're doing a deep dive in this one for the reasons I just mentioned. And if you're just tuning in, the links for all of the things I'm talking about today are in the description. So, number one, the application link is in the description. Number two, if you want to join next week's webinar and get tips after this, so we're going to talk about some tips today. If you want a summary of those tips, use the link, use one of the links in the description to add your email there. And then, of course, there's a link to get one on one help. I just want to say off the bat, one of the things I'm really proud of our team putting together this year are all the grant resources we put together. So we have this ultimate guide for small business grants, dozens and dozens of grants to help you. We go into what are small business grants, how do you effectively apply. I think if you search Hello Skip 2022 grants, you'll find all of these resources. And here we do a state by state guide as well, and pages specifically for women owned businesses, veteran owned businesses, and minority owned businesses. So, everything you could ever want if you're looking for grants or loans or financing. And here's our 1K grant program, helloskip.com/1K. We donate our YouTube revenue back to subscribers. We've been doing that for 16 or 17 months, most of our YouTube revenue back to you. So I think we picked maybe 10 winners in January. So we're going to pick more winners the third Wednesday of this month. So you can go to this page if you haven't yet. So let's dive into Tory Burch Foundation here, and I'm going to pull up the application. But first, I want to go over the official rules and how they will choose winners. I think this is down in uh, section 4 here. So to keep in mind when you fill out the questions, judging procedure and criteria. This is very important. All eligible entries will be judged based on the following criteria. Number one, the viability and strength of the business, your business. Number two, how the business and owner intends to use the grant and annual membership to the crew. That's those meetings that I mentioned. Number three, the potential for business growth. So there's more here as well, but it's really important in your application to speak to those. And with that, does anyone else from the team want to add there on some kind of high level tips on applying and what might stand out for this application?
Well, if you look at it in general, a lot of this is about empowering women, and you can get an overview just by this for any grant, not just this one in general. But if you look at the pages that of each organization, they'll tell you more or less what they want, and this gives you information on. This tells you basically that they want to show that they're empowering women, and if you show that your business also helps other women, that could be something that's helpful. A big component of this is that membership that they're giving you. And if you show that you can be of value, so if you have a lot of business experience or you work within certain communities, that can be something else that can help you strengthen your grant application with them.
Absolutely. And anyone else want to add in there some high level thoughts? I'm going to pull up the crew, which is the organization that does the one-on-one mentorship, and then we'll get into the. So this is what David was just speaking about. Basically, you'll have monthly mentorship, and I know we hear this a lot that you just want the funding. Most people just focus on the funding, but I mean, if you look at all the top entrepreneurs, all the top business leaders, successful businesses, they've all had some network. Incredibly important. Chrissy was just remarking on this. So, don't poo-poo on this part. I mean, this is a great organization from everything we've heard, and basically, you'll get a match with up to 8 women, and there's well, I won't go into all the details, but you can read about it here, and it's really helped a lot of folks. Has anyone gone through it? I'd love to hear in the comments if some of you have gone through the Crew program or any of these organizations, Fearless Fund or the Tory Burch Foundation. And we'll look for those comments. So let's get into the application here. So basically, I did a high level of this a couple days ago, I believe. But I want to focus on the questions because we also heard from the director who, like I said, will be joining us next Tuesday and answering last minute questions that they want. What are they looking for? Again, maybe we'll get that in the comments here, what they're looking for, but businesses that have high potential and how you would use the funding, right? So if they give you $10,000 or $20,000, they want to know what you're going to use it for. I first want to talk about your business description, some do's and don'ts. So can someone kind of share what makes a good business description?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to share. So when you're looking at a business description, essentially, so you'll have a business plan description. It's very different depending on what your industry is, what type of company you are. So you really kind of want to research your industry and your competition, just to make sure you have that information in front of you. And then you want to describe your industry current and future state, right? You want to provide just basic information. And the biggest thing is going to be to craft a problem statement. So a problem statement is something to identify like a common problem that your target audience faces and how your business will solve it using your services or products or whatever you offer. And then you'll definitely want to define who your target audience is, explain plans, how your business is going to be profitable, and all this is going to go into a basic business description for you.
That's great. Anyone want to add any high level comments there?
You only have 100 words, so you have to make everything count.
Absolutely.
Yeah, one of the insider tips, I mean, we've all reviewed lots of applications, and put yourself in the shoes of Fearless Fund. So Fearless Fund are the organizers, and they got funding from the Goldman Sachs, has a 1 million Black women initiative, and they've gotten funding. That's what's sponsored this program and put in a lot of the funding. So let's say they receive 100,000 applications, and they're picking 150 winners. That means they're reviewing a lot. So if you put in any jargon or any high level, and I'm going to show some do's and don'ts here in a minute, but basically it's easy to pass on things that just have too much jargon. Like, get specific and be authentic. Let's put it that way. I don't know if anyone else can articulate that better.
Yeah, just make sure that you're not using a bunch of fluff words, such as, writer's going to go over some of the most overused words. But you want to make sure, like David was saying, that each word means something. Know why you're putting it down. Don't just have something that you're saying because it sounds good. Make it mean something.
Absolutely. So I'll share some of these words when you're writing these. And in the application, there's around six or seven questions that will be the most important, that when they're reviewing, they'll be seeing, okay, is this person going to make it to the next level or not? So basically, the deadlines are open till this Wednesday, February 9th, this coming Wednesday. And then I believe it's about a month later, they'll do phone interviews with folks. And I don't know if that's going to be 1,000 or how they're going to choose. But I think if they see promise in your application, they'll invite you to phone interview. Then in March or April, they'll pick winners. I'll pull up those dates again in a minute. But here are words to avoid, not only in this first question I pulled up, but in general: benchmarks, challenges, commitment, completed, community, ensure, evaluation, gap, key, impact. You could put in a lot of other buzzwords here as well. These are some of the big ones, at least from this unfundedlist.com, the most overused words in grant writing. So did we miss any other words that you would like to avoid? And by the way, before I get back to the questions, like I said, please leave your comments and questions. Once we get through this grant, we'll answer other questions as well. You have to be a subscriber for at least around 5 minutes or so to ask questions, just to control some of the all the comments. And like this video, it helps us on YouTube. Okay. So back to the business description, 100 words, right? So hone in on it, be very specific to the problem you're solving and the why. They want to know, you want to make this personal as best you can. And so people can, see this as a memorable application. They're also looking for your marketing presence as well. So hopefully you have social media accounts. They're not all required, but I think they will look more favorably on that. I believe that's what we heard from the marketing director. And David, what's another good way to stand out in terms of your online presence?
Well, complete profiles on your social media accounts. That's definitely a good thing. Your logo everywhere that you can put it on. One of the requirements that was above the business description was having a business website. So if you don't have a website, you have a few days to start working on it and get something up. Even if you don't have the best website at the moment, you need at least something up just so they can look at it for part of their criteria.
Absolutely. Yeah, you should be able to get a website up in a day if you need to. Think of this as a good forcing function too. Things you haven't done, you can think through, and a lot of these questions you can use for other grant applications. We can help with websites as well if you get in touch with us. Now, I want to talk about, according to the rules and according to what we heard, one of the most important questions is this one here. If you were selected for this grant, how would you use the funds in the next year? And basically, what are some do's and don'ts to put in here? Anyone want to chime in here? Things that should be put down and things that don't need to be, like the level of detail that doesn't need to be included?
So for here, you want to make sure that you are specific in what the funds will be used for in the next year. You don't want to be too cumulative where you're like, I'm going to get marketing help. I'm going to hire some more people. I'm going to, things like that. You want to be a bit more detailed. I plan to hire 5 people in the next year. I plan to use the funds to X, Y, and Z. Spell it out. They want to see that, and it helps to strengthen your application.
Absolutely. And yeah, I think a big theme we've seen in helping people now is, and this is what people expect, like hiring great people. There's the great resignation, people leaving jobs. If that's important to grow your business, that's, and as an operational expense, right? A lot of reasons why people got EIDL funding or are still looking for EIDL funding is because you want to hire people. You've been lean for too long. So I think a great rationale is if you need a couple talented people, you know, what will the 20,000 do? Is that going to be a couple people for half a year, or one person that you can bring on, or is there like the example here? Is it going to be for some marketing? I'd lean away from marketing. I don't think saying I'm going to put 20,000 towards Facebook ads or Google is going to stand out, because I think it's, you know, then they know their money's just going to the big corporations. So, you know, if I were doing it, I'd put down the team or something specific for your business, like inventory, like some upfront one-time expense that this could help with, because then they're okay, great. It's very tangible that if we grant you this 10K or 20K, you'll be able to do this one purchase. So be specific so they can visualize it in their minds. Anyone want to add anything there? And similarly, the second question relates to this. You know, how would this grant impact your business in the long term? Again, as specific as possible. You can basically say, yeah, this $20,000 will allow me to, you know, do this one-time purchase, which will help us scale and increase our margins in the long run. So be as specific as possible, and do not use those jargon words, or that you're going to be able to interface with more people. So, and this might take revisions so. To do these well takes multiple revisions. So even you might say, oh, I have an hour to fill this out, let me do it quickly. That's fine. But the ones that are going to stand out, you probably have to do a few revisions and think through it and ask a second set of eyes. That's one of the most important things in grant writing and writing in general, to ask for a second or a third opinion. It may be clear in your mind, but have someone else read it. Is it clear for them? You know, I usually recommend 2 other reviewers. So if you have a friend who's done this, or who you trust, who doesn't already know everything about your business, share it with them. We can review it as well. If you know, basically what we do is we'll review everything on a Google Doc, and we can say, yeah, cut this out, it doesn't make sense. But without a doubt, that's the number one way to stand out on a grant application. Have a second or third set of eyes review it. Anyone else want to add in anything? And we'll answer questions in a few minutes here, but I'll just take a minute to say if there's any urgent questions besides EIDL loans. We'll talk about EIDL towards the end of this and other grants, but we mainly want to help people be successful with this 20K grant. Anyone want to add anything?
Yeah, sure. I was just going to say, whenever you're answering those questions too, you always want to make sure that you're circling it back to your mission, right? So there's 2 parts of it. There's the operational, and then there's the you know, your mission as well. So you can get pretty specific and name like concrete expenses, et cetera, what you're going to use the money for. But you'll always want to clarify how those specific expenses will achieve your mission, right? So essentially, like, you're trying to, like Chrissy said earlier, you're trying to reach out to more women, you're trying to better a community, who's your target audience, etc. So you always want to try and circle it back to your mission.
Absolutely. That's great. That's a great point to tie it back. If you think you're going off topic or it's not in line with the mission, because the mission is what's going to excite the application reviewers. So make sure you echo that. And by the way, all the links, for everyone asking about links in the comments, all the relevant links to the grant, to join us in our next webinar and get tips. You know, a lot of things we're talking about here, we have a more succinct version that we can send you after the webinar, and then also to get help from our team. So next question here. Again, this is about the crew and how do you, and both David, Chrissy, and Kayla, I think we've already remarked on this. How do you plan on utilizing this network of women? we already said you want to show that this is important to you, because they're looking to build this community and have people who are engaged for these monthly meetings. So what would be some good, let's put ourselves in the grant writer shoes. What would be some good responses here potentially?
Well, when you're in any group, there's give and take, and it's actually good to take sometimes. So if you don't know everything, it's good to let them know, because you have all these people that are very knowledgeable, and then of course you want to give back whatever you know. So you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to know every single thing. They might be looking for people that are actually looking for more knowledge, and they have their people that have been around for longer that can help them out. So it's good to just be honest and let them know what you want to use a group for, and if you can offer something, even better. But it's also good if you're on a quest for knowledge and you need some more help. That could be another good thing to add on there.
Absolutely. Faith, thanks for the super sticker. Really appreciate it. And it's great to see you as well. Yeah. Anyone want to kind of echo what David just mentioned there in terms of what works well in a group setting? Because that's really, this is a big piece of the application and getting one of these 20K, 10K grants.
So just to piggyback on what David was saying, I think it's also important to think about, as well as use the women that are in the group to grow, to learn from them, to see what's working for them, to see how you can implement it. So it's really a lot of value in um, utilizing a network of women like this, not just, oh, I have to go to these meetings, but it's a real opportunity to help scale your business to another level. So I think even mentioning things like that would be good. Maybe even including, if you plan to help other women from what you learn, to be able to copy what you've done. That's also a good idea, maybe put in there.
There's also referrals. If you have like a large network of people that you deal with, and you're in non-competing business, you might be able to give each other referrals. So that could be something else that you can add on to there.
Absolutely. And we'll answer questions in a minute here, but just, the crew, by the way, we've been in contact with these organizations, and we did a little bit of research ahead of time to verify that these are, worthwhile, right? A lot of the grants we'll review, and then we'll say, yeah, it's not worth your time, or it's not a good resource, but these are established organizations. They have a lot of great information that they put out on their website. So I'm just scrolling through some of the articles here: how to think like an entrepreneur, how to develop your personal brand. These might be interesting to review if you're trying to learn a little bit more about the crew and speak towards, some of the things that the women already participating in these groups value, the things they already value. So anyway, how to raise venture capital, how to design beautiful content, just probably useful stuff in general. And I know we have a lot of those posts as well on the Skip website. Let me get to the last two major questions, or last one here. Where do you see yourself as a business owner in 1 year? So we've reviewed these 4 or 5 main questions. I think probably what's best here to keep in mind is what Kayla mentioned, to tie this back into your mission. It's not about you per se. It's about, the problem you're solving, the change you're trying to make. So tie it back into the mission. And what else can we add there that would be helpful?
So I talked to someone earlier today, and her business she has a hair extension business. And to me, when, thinking about hair extensions, I'm like, okay, it's just hair extensions. But the truth is, hair extensions, beauty products, they help people empower themselves. It makes them feel better about themselves. So where do you see yourself in 1 year in your business? Well, I see that I've helped a lot of people. I've helped them empower themselves or help them make them feel better about themselves. So that's an example of where they see themselves. And of course, I see my business growing because of this money, because I've been able to buy more inventory. I've been able to brand my business better. And with the help of this program, I was also able to learn about different technology that helped my business. And of course, I see my business growing. You're not going to use those words, but something like that, where you're showing that your business is set for growth, and if possible, show that you're also helping other people, helping your community, helping other communities. That's probably the gist of it there.
That's a great one. I feel like everyone watching should review their applications with you. That's a great. What else? Yeah, absolutely. What other points, Kayla?
I would say definitely also to essentially define what success means to you. What does it mean to you? What does that look like for you in 1 year? Where do you see yourself being successful? What milestones do you reach? And the biggest thing on all of these grant applications is be honest. Don't overpromise something you're not going to be able to stick to. You don't want to promise that you're going to go to every single event 8 hours a day for the next 3 months, if that's not going to be something you're going to be able to do. But for that last one, definitely really do, I guess, some soul searching and find out, what does success mean to you? What do you define that as? And then you want to pull in that reader and help them reiterate or to connect with that. And so all of this is just part of that, is connecting all the dots.
Absolutely. And well, there's one more question that I'm going to pull up, and then also share some of the more tips from the rules that they have here. But we just want to answer this question here. Erica asks, this is the grant that's only for the first 5 years in business, correct? I've been in business 16 years. You still want to apply. So they say preferred, that 1 to 5 years. So that doesn't mean that they'll still be open to your business, Erica. It's hard to know if they're going to allocate certain, like basically how strict they'll be there, but they say preferred newer businesses that they want to help. But if your story and your mission and these questions are compelling, I don't see why not. I'd choose your business if it had the good story behind it. Anyone else read it differently?
If you're reinventing your business, that maybe now it's I've been in business in 16 years, but now I'm reinventing it. So it's almost like it's a new business. It doesn't, like you said, it says preferred. It doesn't say it's a mandatory rule. So it's worth a shot.
That's a great one. Yeah, we know so many businesses that have made pivots, and since the pandemic, right? Anything new that you're doing, a new angle, it's more like it's a great point. Let me share here this. So more details on the rules page. I'm going to read here too. So there's going to be 75 prize winners that will receive $10,000, and 25 that will receive $20,000. So you get a sense of the scale here and how they're going to distribute the 10K and the 20K grants. The value, let's see here. Grant winners are required to comply with any and all laws, of course, and you'll be responsible for taxes. I'm not sure how much you'll be taxed on your grants. And you'll probably get a 1099 form, right, as income. You'll probably need to pay tax. That's what it says here. It says may be issued, so I don't know why they just didn't say will be issued, but maybe that covers them here. But here are here's more details on that commitment, that mentorship commitment. So attend virtual monthly gatherings with your crew, 2 hours per month. That's mandatory. Reflect on your goals and engage with your crew between gatherings via the crew's digital portal, 30 minutes per week, highly encouraged, and provide regular feedback To the Crew, Tory Burch Foundation, and Fearless Fund quarterly. So if you mention these things in your application, that you're thrilled to be part of this community, and that will help. And especially if you make it to the interview stage, certainly want to speak to these and say that say why this is important to you. Total value of all prizes, $1 million. So I wanted to pull that up, and let me get back to the last question on the application. Then we're going to switch to questions, talk about other grants that may be relevant for you, and any other questions. Okay. Are you involved in any other programs? Obviously, if you are in another accelerator, incubator, or fellowship, I mean, they don't say that you will be rejected outright, but probably chances aren't that good because of this time commitment I just showed. You're going to have to do those monthly meetings. So if you're in another accelerator, they're going to probably decide, you know what, you're going to be too busy. So just keep that in mind. I mean, if you're already in another program, this may not be the right grant/fellowship grant/mentorship program for you. The last question, anything else you would like to share? So great opportunity to share a bit more. There's some do's and don'ts here. One of the things that's great about forums like this is the limits they have: 100-word max, 500-word max. It forces you to be concise. One of the biggest things we've seen on EIDL applications or EIDL letters, or we've heard this from folks applying, is that there's a tendency to get wordy and share your whole story. And again, put yourself in the reviewer's shoes. If they're reviewing hundreds or thousands a day, they can't really digest your entire story. So who else wants to speak to that?
Yeah, I think this is one of my favorite questions, just because it gives you the opportunity to really hone in on your story, to tell who you are, anything that hasn't been addressed yet, with the parameters of the above questions. This is your chance to be really memorable so that they can kind of take it back with them. It is the last question. I would suggest, in being memorable, to make sure that you tell something that's going to stick. Maybe it's something funny, maybe it's something impactful, but definitely have someone to read over it too, to make sure that it makes sense, that it conveys what you're trying to say, and most importantly, like Kayla said earlier, make sure that it links back to the mission of your organization, your business, so that it's all like nice and neat together.
That's great. Anything else we want to add there?
I like tying things together to a story that relates to a person. So earlier I mentioned I talked to someone on the phone earlier. That tied it into something that happened. So if you can tie basically what the money has done, what you've already done, and maybe how it can, with some more funding, you can help more people do the same thing and tie it, give it a human twist to it. That's the wording. Give it a human twist.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. The human twist, and something that'll make you stand out, make it memorable. Again, if someone's reviewing 1,000 of these a day, what unique story is going to make you stand out? And they can, and you can't bluff that, because when you've reviewed as many applications as they will be doing, and we've seen it too, you can see if something's authentic or not pretty quickly. So just be sure that you're being authentic. Kayla, anything you want to add in there before we go to some questions?
Sure. Yeah, I was just going to say too, just as an overall, just make sure when you're in there, again, I'm back to, you don't want to fib on it. Make sure your budget makes sense. Don't procrastinate on it. Pay super close attention to the details. And like everyone said, you don't want to go too out of it. You always want to tie it back to your mission, what the goal is, how you're going to use the funds, how it's going to impact people. So just that's the biggest thing, is focus on those.
Absolutely. So leave your comments below if we didn't answer those. We went over those main questions. Like I said at the top, this grant application is due Wednesday. On Tuesday, we're going to do another last-minute webinar. So if you're thinking about this, it's probably good to take the weekend to draft these questions, have someone look over it, have us look over it, and then when we have the person who's in charge of these grants on, you can use that time to answer maybe get some last-minute tips. We'll see. But of course, we want to help all of our subscribers get as many grants as possible. So we're biased towards you watching, and thanks everyone who's been leaving comments and subscribing. And all these links are in the description, even the link if you want to join Tuesday's webinar and then get a summary of tips that we've talked about today. And so let me first, Faith, you asked about the R1K grants. So I'll mention that quickly here. helloskip.com/1K. We're going to choose more winners. I believe it's in not next week, but the week after. And it's completely based on our YouTube channel and our YouTube revenue. So of course, many of you watching have been longtime supporters. I can see that. And we donate our revenue back to give out a $1,000 grant. So, and the odds are better. I mean, we're biased, of course, but the odds of winning one of our 1K grants are better. And you can see your odds. So if you, let me share again here. If you go to, you can sign up here in a few seconds, and I'll show you one example. You can, I'll just put in my dummy account here. Don't everyone email me there, but you can see your percent chances of winning and referral code and how to increase your chances of winning. So just a side note, I mean, this webinar is not about our grants program, but of course, I say this all the time, don't put all your eggs in one basket. A lot of the tips we are giving today are universal for whether it's grants or loans or communicating your business to venture capitalists or other financing options. Let's answer some questions. If we can pull up some questions here or drop them in the comments, we'll answer specific questions. Okay, Tiffany asks, is this for nonprofits too? The short answer is, according to the rules, no, unfortunately. I don't know if there's anything we can add in there. We can ask the director on Tuesday why it's only for for-profits. But we do have, I believe we have grants for nonprofits on our grants page here, on one of our grants page. So yeah, grants for nonprofits here. So state-by-state guide to small business funding and grants. You can see grants for nonprofits, and we update this every week because this one has expired, the Walmart Foundation, but Google has, they do 10K Google ad grants for nonprofits. That's ongoing. It's a good way to get you hooked on Google ads, which I don't recommend. It's dangerous to try to run Google ads and you burn through the 10K credit pretty quickly. And then they're charging your business bank account. But hey, 10K in ads, go for it. I think it's a great thing to do.
That's actually a very good program. It's pretty easy to get as long as you're within their. They have certain parameters on it. If you're within their parameters, they give you $10,000 a month, and that's free advertising, and it's very easy to sign up. It's not one of those, it's not like some of these other grants where it's like 1 in 1,000. They give this to pretty much any nonprofit that falls under their guidelines.
That's great, Dave. Have you gone through it, or you've helped folks that have gone through it and applied successfully?
I know a lot of people, a lot of nonprofits that have gotten it. It's $120,000 in free advertising, so that can help you get get a lot of you can get new donors or get the word out about your nonprofit. So that's probably one of the best programs there is for a nonprofit, and it's one of the easiest to get.
Absolutely. And Facebook did that. I'm not sure if they're still doing that, but early on in the pandemic, they did grants for Facebook ads. And it's kind of, I mean, aligned for them, right, to get you into their advertising system. For example, I mean, I've mentioned this. We announced this, I think, 2 weeks ago, that for some of our members, and you can see the details on the link above here, but for some of our members, we're going to start featuring them not only on our YouTube, but on our other social channels, on our email list, and our website, which has combined has around 1 million visitors a month. So if you want to get some exposure, to think about, Google's good. Google's great for people searching, people who have intent. How do I do this? How do I do that? And they find you. Facebook is good for, I'm not sure what Facebook ads are good for because, but Google, depends on your type of business, how people are discovering you, or if they have intent, like for a specific pain point, and they'll find you by searching for something. Thanks so much for the kind words, Tavanda, and would love to hear if you apply for this. Like everyone who's tuned in today, of course. I mean, just always want to say thank you for spending the time. We love doing this. We love, doing research and doing these webinars. We're going to start to do these weekly on different areas. So if there's things you want to hear about, you can always comment on our YouTube or email us, tips@helloskip.com. And we always want to know your successes. I mean, we have an internal channel here, which is amazing. Every day we have dozens of people getting approved for EIDL loans. I think we'll answer this EIDL question in a minute, but we share them internally because we love hearing your successes. Even if it's a 10K grant, even 5K grant, we want to hear about it. Or if it's $1 million loan, we'd love to hear about it too. So anyone who applies for this, we'd love to hear what your experience is like. It helps us know in the future, because we'll find out on Tuesday when we bring on the director. But these organizations, I imagine, will do probably recurring grant programs. So I would not be surprised if they say, okay, in the summer, the first round was successful, let's do another round. And we'd love to know successes that you've had. So if we should recommend it in the future or not. Should we go into who has grant questions here? Otherwise, I mean, we could switch gears into other funding and do that. Anyone have any grant questions? And it's not just about the Tory Burch Foundation grant here, but like I said, we have dozens on these pages, and loans, lines of credit. I'll say it once because it needs to be said. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. If you're trying to grow your business this year, go after grants, look at loans, compare your options, loans, lines of credit, and the whole works. Because what we hear a lot is, let's say you don't get one grant, you don't want to be out of luck. Then you need to diversify a little bit. So thanks, Grace, for sharing the kind words. And I'm going to bring in an EIDL question here. So because you came to the right place for that as well. So Tiwodros, sorry if I mispronounced your name. Please help me correct my EIDL loan, because you didn't put in your correct revenue on EIDL application. Rather, you put your gross income. So the tax transcript and the gross income on your application is not the same. Quite common. Who wants to share some thoughts for this case?
All right. So what happens is when you do something like that, the numbers are way off. You usually get a decline for significant discrepancies between the transcript and the application. Usually you end up what you have to do is do a reconsideration, let them know that you didn't have your taxes in hand and you went off of estimates, and that usually it takes a while to get it to work through the system, but usually that's enough. You didn't have the taxes in hand, you're working off of estimates, and you like the numbers from your transcript to reflect your EIDL loan amount.
Absolutely. So hopefully that helps. David, how long, I mean, when you correct it, what's the process usually like? I know you've seen a lot of successes there.
The other thing you might want to, just to continue on that, you might want to do bank statements also. You want to prove the income. That's another thing you might want to add to it. The reconsiderations, they average about a month, and to go through the reconsideration process, then another 1 to 3 weeks to go to a loan officer. So 4 to 7 weeks is about average. And once it passes through the loan officer, if it's under $500,000, could be funded in as little as a few days to a week.
That's great. Okay, so now we're getting the EIDL questions. So keep them coming. But of course, any Tory Burch ones, we're happy to answer. But I mean, we know that I mentioned this in the last webinar. Lots of people are being approved. Lots were approved in January, like the pace picked up, but we know still tens of thousands of folks are still waiting. So Jay, thanks for asking, what's with the constant 4506T and multiple schedule of liabilities? I think you're asking about why you're getting requests for those multiple times. Is that how you read it? Who wants to chime in there?
So you may be getting the constant requests for them because maybe they didn't receive it at all, Jay. Maybe it was filled out incorrectly. The schedule of liabilities, maybe that didn't have something up there. There's no way to really tell, just guesstimating. So the best thing to do would be to book a one-on-one onboarding session with one of our funding concierges and send us your 4506T form as well as your schedule of liabilities. We'll be able to go over that and give you a more definitive answer about what's going on.
And lot of good questions coming in here. So let's pull up the next one. Greg, if you want to pull up the next one here. Thanks, Grace. If the business was started in January 2020, do I still qualify for EIDL? I applied and they said no because I didn't have the business in 2019. The short is you should. Let's add in some color there. You should qualify. David, do you have any?
So definitely, if as long as it was started before January 31st, 2020, you can qualify.
And do you need to have revenue by January 30th, 2020? Like, what do they look?
It's preferable to have it, but they can go off other months in 2020.
So if you didn't, so what, in your experience, what do they look for? Like they want to see incorporation documents, because a lot of people say they started, but for the SBA's sake, what do they need to see?
So they say it has to be in operation before January 31st, 2020. So in operation could be a lease, it could be contracts, it could be bills of sales, different things like that. The LLC is one thing, but there's people that hold LLCs for years and never do anything with it. So you want to show a little more movement than just your articles of incorporation.
That's a good one. Hopefully that helps, Grace. And I would love to know where you're at in the process. Are you going through reconsideration or not yet? Let's pull up another question here. Tara asks, how long does it take the SBA to receive the 4506T back? I think you're asking. What's the latest we've heard, since it's changed so often? And there's no right answer there, but yeah.
We hear 5 to 10 days, and it varies because you send them the 4506T, it sits for a couple weeks before they do anything. So It 5 to 10 days is once they send it to the IRS.
Yeah, Tara says it's been over a month, so
Yeah, it could still be sitting in a pile in the SBA somewhere, or there could be an issue with it. There's a lot of variables. If there's any type of issue with the 4506T, anything's off, that sometimes they won't even let you know for months what's going on. So you have to stay on top of them if it's been about a month and you haven't heard anything.
And just looping back to Grace's question here, this is great. Jay chimed in that, to echo what David mentioned, if you can prove you spent money on startup cost, you qualify. So yeah, if you have some receipts for things you've paid for the business. Jay, if that's assuming that worked for you, or you had a similar case. But thanks for chiming in. Okay, we have a targeted EIDL question. Should we pull that up here? Speaking of grants. Okay, Shadoop, sorry if I mispronounced your name. You have a question about targeted EIDL advanced grant and supplemental grant. You're an Uber driver as independent contractor, and you used your home address for your business. But your home is not in a low-income community, but just one street away from the border. I am renting this home and not a homeowner. Is there any way to get those grants?
Well, at this time, it's going to be a little touch and go, honestly, because you could send them proof that it's one street away. Somebody may do something about it, but to be honest, more than likely they won't, because it's not in a low income area. And you would also have to get your reevaluation in pretty quickly, as far as that's concerned, with the targeted advance. Now, the supplemental targeted advance is already closed. That money has already been spent, depleted as of December 31st. So I would still try as far as the targeted advance, email and targeted advance reevaluation at sba.gov.
Yeah, that's unfortunately that is one of the trickiest. I mean, we know that hundreds of thousands of, if not millions of deserving businesses, you may be a low income business. Anyway, we talked about this for the past year, and we've written letters as well. Here's the latest. By the way, this data just came out. So here's the latest in terms of the targeted advances. That's the full 10K grant. And I've said this multiple times, there's tons of money in that pot, but because the way the law was written, and the SBA has been strict about the law, because the SBA can make policy, but they have to do what's in the legislation. So even the administrator, she cannot change, she cannot make exceptions to, oh, you're on the other side of the street, which we know is the case for so many of you, unfortunately. But only 600,000 targeted advances have been funded. If I had to guess, I'd say, certainly millions of folks would be eligible if the criteria was changed, if it was about your actual business revenue as opposed to where you lived. But I think it's one of the things that they couldn't anticipate when they wrote the law in December 2020, that they would have money left over. And now they took a lot of this money and put it towards the infrastructure bill. So unfortunately, we know some people are still getting approved for these, so I'd love to hear if it's if that's the case. We've got a Tory grant question here from AA Cooper. Thanks. I only made under 50K in 2020 and 2021. My business started in June 2019. Can you apply for the grant? It certainly sounds like it based on the eligibility I pulled up. Does everyone else kind of read the same as me there?
Well, it says they prefer $100,000 minimum annual revenue, but preferred doesn't mean it's mandatory.
Oh, right, the preferred language for R1K. Mm-hmm. Oh, under, yeah. Yeah, Nikki chimes in there. You'd have to make 100K as the preferred. So I guess I'd say go for it. If you have something that shows that, you know, maybe it was an anomaly or that you're going to make well over 100K this year, I'd say go for it. That'd be my opinion. Well, we'll ask the director on Tuesday. So be sure, if you haven't yet, all those links are in the description to the application. And because we're gonna sign off here in a minute, but all the links in the description. This will be recorded as well. But I believe the second link, if you want to get tips from this webinar and you want to be invited to Tuesday's webinar with the director for the final tips, go to that second link. And if you want us to review your application, we'd love to. You can use the link above here, or use the link in the description. It's so great to see so many of you, so many familiar faces tuning in. Really appreciate it. And would love to hear your comments. What else? What did we leave out? What else do you want to see more of in our next webinar? You know, our mission is to help you succeed in your business, that whether that's funding, your business plan, your business website, marketing. We're helping all business owners with that. So thanks for spreading the word. And most importantly, hope you all are doing well. And I can't wait to see you all soon. Bye-bye.